Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. Today, we bring you some news. Royal family in chaos. After Sarah Ferguson breaks silence about Camilla's dark secret. Recent reports from a number of news outlets indicate that Queen Camilla and Sarah Duchess of York engaged in a disagreement in a professional setting. The spokesman for the Duchess of Cambridge swiftly and vehemently refuted these allegations. All of the reports revolved around the fact that the Duchess of Cambridge had requested a formal collaborative placement for her newest children's book, Flora and Fern: Kindness Along the Way, in the Queen's reading room. This is the literary initiative that Queen Camilla is most well known for. Such a story quickly garnered a great deal of attention, not only due to the fact that it involved two well-known members of the British royal family, but also due to the fact that it brought up sensitive issues regarding the appropriate balance between official royal patronage and the private business dealings of family members who are not working royals. This particular episode serves as an illustration of how media narratives can elevate and reinterpret mundane professional issues as personal conflicts. Furthermore, it demonstrates how these reinterpretations align with the overarching strategic interests of King Charles III and the Prince of Wales in their efforts to protect the public image of the monarchy. In the beginning, the tale was given in a straightforward manner that was intentionally exciting. According to a number of news outlets, the most notable of which was the Mail, the event was referred to as a monumental snub, which implies that Queen Camilla had declined the Duchess's new title and that this refusal was a serious and even intentional rejection. The narrative that was recounted was straightforward in its primary aspects and packed with symbolic meaning. A well-known individual who is linked to the royal family makes a request for help for an endeavor that is highly respected by a senior royal, but that request is denied. In the eyes of the media, the rejection is evidence of interpersonal friction rather than a choice made according to administrative or programmatic guidelines. Readers were accustomed to the implicit dramatic logic in the framing. Any interaction between two women in the public eye, particularly if one is known to be a working member of the royal household and the other is known to be an independent businesswoman, can be told as a story of rivalry or social exclusion. This is especially true in situations where one of the women is known to be competing with the other. This line of reasoning was utilized in the article that was published in the Mail, as well as in other similar stories, to argue that the Queen's denial was in essence an emotional insult directed at the Duchess. A spokesperson for the Duchess of York, on the other hand, issued a plain and frank reaction to the Mirror in which they refuted the claim almost immediately. A rebuttal was provided that went over the particular components of the narrative and contested each of them individually. In the beginning, the spokesperson made it quite clear that neither the Duchess nor anyone else acting on her behalf had submitted an official request to the Queen's reading room to include Flora and Fern on its lists. This was not a partial or qualified rejection based on the reason or approach. Rather, it was a complete denial that a request even remotely similar to the one that was presented had ever been made. Second, the spokesperson said that Queen Camilla had not declined or snubbed the offer, which is a statement that follows logically from the one that came before it. The two portions, no application and no snub, were conducted with the intention of destroying the fundamental facts that were the basis for the claims in the media. The Duchess's reply was more than just a denial. It included context that was meant to affect how people should think about the issue. Specifically, it referred to a long-term detail. None of the Duchess of York's books have been chosen for the recommended lists of the Queen's reading room since it opened in 2021. That specific point is essential because it shows a pattern of not including people that happened before this episode. This makes the concept that the Queen's crew suddenly and deliberately opted to leave out a well-known author who was linked to the story less likely. Instead of a clear and harsh rejection, the history shows that there is a continuing operational difference between a charity that suggests books to read and an independent author who sells books via normal business channels. The refusal, therefore, recontextualized the scenario from interpersonal discord to institutional limitations and editorial standards representing two concurrent but separate professional pathways instead of a contentious personal split. To understand why that change is important, we need to look closely at the two literary entities that are at the center of the tale and the larger institutional setting in which they work. The initial accounts are most directly about the Queen's Reading Room. It started as an Instagram-based reading club organized by Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, in January 2021, when many parts of Britain were still under pandemic-related lockdowns and restrictions. In a practical sense, its beginnings were simple. Camilla exchanged reading lists and suggestions meant to provide comfort company and a feeling of cultural continuity at a time when many readers were cut off from usual social connections. The style of short curated lists and occasional comments worked well for social media and filled a clear public need for well-chosen reading that may improve moods or help people pass the time in a meaningful way. The project's early success showed that the notion has legs beyond the lockdowns that were happening at the time. By February 2023, what had started as an informal Instagram project had become a registered charity with the clear goal to celebrate and promote the power and benefits of reading. As expected, the process of formalizing the charity involved expanding its scope and setting up the organizational structures needed for it to work on a national and international level. The Queen's Reading Room currently has a podcast, interviews with authors, literary festivals, and educational initiatives that promote reading as a way to learn, understand others, and grow as a person. Its public materials make it clear that they believe books provide portals to new worlds, other lives, and other minds, and that careful curation may bring readers and authors together in ways that benefit both. Queen Camilla's job in the business isn't just for show. It is commonly known that she is personally committed to reading and literacy concerns in general. For many years, she has been a supporter or patron of several literacy organizations, including the National Literacy Trust Book Trust and Coram Beanstalk. She often talks and writes about how reading has shaped her life. Major Bruce Shand, her father, has had a big impact on her life. He pushed her to read early on and made books a source of comfort and interest for her. The Queen's Reading Room has a certain authenticity because of the lived experience of the people who use it and the ongoing interest in philanthropy. People don't just read her lists because they have a royal stamp of approval. They do it because they think someone who really cares about literature and literacy work has put them together. That reputation has genuine effects on the publishing world. Authors and publishers really want support from a well-known reading platform, especially one that can reach a lot of people and has a cultural significance linked to the monarchy. In real life, being on the Queen's Reading Room lists usually makes a book more visible to the public right away and in a way that can be measured. Retailers, reviewers, and social media influencers pay attention to these placements, and the extra attention frequently leads to more sales, more media coverage, and a longer shelf life in the public discussion. A high-profile curator's endorsement may act as an imprimatur for many writers and small publishing companies, letting them know that a book is not just marketable, but also culturally or thematically relevant. Because inclusion may lead to real advantages, the governance and selection processes of this kind of charity are important. The Queen's Reading Room calls itself a curated platform, and the choices are made by a group of experts based on a clear objective and set of criteria. To that purpose, the lists have mostly focused on adult fiction and nonfiction, and the organization's public-facing material is based on topics and concepts that appeal to a wider audience instead of kids. This editorial focus on adult books is important because the specific claim that started the controversy was that the Duchess of York's proposal, as it was first reported, was for a children's picture book, which is not what the charity is supposed to do according to its literature. The difference between what the charity says it cares about and the kind of book they want to publish is a simple programmatic reason for not including it that doesn't involve any personal enmity. To elaborate nonprofit reading projects often delineate their scope to optimize effect and coherence. A platform built around adult reading lists might focus on topics like mental health history, current politics, or biographies. This is because these topics reflect the curator's knowledge, the audience's interests, and the charity's own goals, such as adult literacy, lifelong learning, or community cohesion. A children's picture book, no matter how well-intentioned and thematically aligned with literacy objectives, pertains to a distinct array of instructional methodologies, distribution avenues, schools, nurseries, children's bookstores, and assessment criteria. Curators need to be able to explain their choices to both the public and themselves. This usually entails using the same rules for genre-target audience and how well the choice fits with planned activities. So, educational organizations or children's literacy programs that have the resources and partnerships to help young readers and teachers will frequently be more suited to handle a children's book. Another important aspect is that institutions connected to the royal family must be impartial and clear about their ethics in order to do their jobs. A charity related to the royal family must build trust and show that its choices and actions are based on rules that have nothing to do with personal connections or family ties. If people thought that a charity closely linked to a senior royal was giving preferential treatment to family members or mixing together government support with private business marketing, the charity may lose its image and have to answer concerns about conflicts of interest. That specter helps explain why the Queen's reading room would follow established protocols for choosing works and why an informal or private business proposition from a connected but not working family member may be turned down or more likely not even considered as a matter of policy. The audience has to be sure that the charity's curatorial decisions are based on literary excellence and how well they fit with its philanthropic goals, not on personal reasons. This institutional necessity helps to separate the idea of personal snubs from the idea of programmatic non-selection. In the UK, charities have to be very cautious about keeping their private business interests separate from their charity work because of the rules. Even if the specifics of governance differ from one company to the next, trustees and management teams usually try to avoid giving the impression that they are giving special treatment. Standard procedures include having explicit rules on conflicts of interest, open selection criteria, and ways to keep track of choices. Royal patronage is important, but it doesn't change these rules for how the government should work. In fact, it makes them even more important since links to the monarchy are more closely watched. These practical limitations explain why the Queen's reading room opts for a uniform editing policy rather than accommodating deviations due to familial connections. On the opposite side of the purported interaction is Sarah, Duchess of York. She has been in the public eye for a long time and has done a lot of different things in her career. At 65, she has built a long-lasting career as an author that runs alongside and mostly apart from her role as a member of the extended royal family. That career started in the late 1980s with the children's show Budgie the Little Helicopter, which was so successful that it was turned into an animated TV show. She has published a lot since then, with more than 70 books in several genres, including children's books and historical fiction for adults. Her children's books frequently include moral teachings, adventure, and self-discovery as their main themes, which are common and sellable in children's literature. Her adult novels, on the other hand, deal with historical stories and character-driven romance. Her 2021 book, Her Heart for a Compass, which she co-wrote with Marguerite Kay, became a blockbuster. It was based on the life of her great-great-aunt, Lady Margaret Montague Douglas Scott, and was written in a way that appealed to fans of historical fiction. In 2023, she published another novel called A Most Intriguing Lady, which solidified her place in that market. The Duchess has spoken about her own creative process in ways that stress becoming fully involved and using unusual methods to get ideas. These approaches have been used by reporters and profiles to show that she is a real writer and not just a celebrity author putting her name on someone else's work. They also show that she is professionally invested in her work beyond just the odd celebrity tie-in. As a working royal before her divorce, she had a job identity that was different from the one she has now as a writer. Writing has also given her sources of independent income. People see her as independent in both her work and her finances, which is a big part of how they see her in public life. After her marriage ended, she became known as a person who worked on the edges of the royal institution, strongly linked by family and history, but working in a business world that needs ordinary market validation instead of official approval from the palace. Flora and Fern kindness along the way fits well with the Duchess's long-standing interest in children's books that have good value-based messages. Two characters discover how important it is to be kind and help each other out, which are themes that fit with both picture book traditions and issues that many famous people, including the Duchess, have supported in the past. Flora and Fern's release and marketing plan might be seen as a continuation of an author's pattern of mixing personal interests with a business plan for publication. The Duchess's success in this area hinges on her ability to reach parents, teachers, and young readers via both conventional publishing routes and the media and marketing tools that make professional writing more visible. Knowing how the children's book industry works might help explain why an adult reading program related to the royal family might not be the best fit for a picture book launch. Picture books frequently use a different marketing mix, such as working with schools and libraries, getting attention via illustrations, and getting endorsements from teachers or child development specialists. Most of the time, launch celebrations are held in places that are good for families or are connected to charity events that promote reading in the early years. On the other hand, book lists made by adults usually focus on novels, memoirs, and nonfiction that are better for those who want to think about things. Children's librarians, teachers' early years groups, and specialized reviewers are all examples of gatekeepers in different markets. If a book's intended audience doesn't line up with a curator's existing reach, any suggested partnership might be useless or not work at all. The media's interest in creating a confrontation between Queen Camilla and the Duchess of York is reinforced furthermore by the larger institutional and reputational imperatives now preoccupying the monarchy. King Charles III wants to show that the monarchy is more focused and streamlined, with the working royals focusing on a precise set of public obligations and official responsibilities. Some people have said that this method is an effort to protect the monarchy's long-term stability by making it obvious who is officially representing the crown and who is not. That strategic narrowing is always made more difficult by the fact that there is an extended family with its own public life and business interests. The palace's communications staff must thus handle not just scheduled ceremonial and charity events, but also the unanticipated optics that occur when non-working royals do activities that interact with the public's expectations of the institution. The biggest problem in the royal world right now is the repercussions from Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and the legal and reputational problems that came from it. There have long been accusations against the Duke of York that are linked to Epstein, who is now dead. The civil complaint filed by Virginia Giuffre got a lot of media attention. The issue was settled outside of court, but it had big effects on the royal family. After being under public scrutiny and judicial pressure, Prince Andrew lost his military and royal patronages and stopped being a working royal. Those results have had a ripple effect on his close family members, and they have made people more sensitive about anything public that has to do with the Duke and his friends, even in a little way. There has been a lot of public interest in Sarah Ferguson's enduring allegiance to her ex-husband. Even though they divorced in 1996, she has still lived at Royal Lodge in Windsor with Prince Andrew at least some of the time. This is something that people usually look into since it connects her public image to someone whose public image has been controversial in recent years. Because she is so close to the family and the people who work for her, it is hard for outsiders to see her job as completely apart from the rest of the family story. So any scenario that puts her in a possible clash with a major royal like Queen Camilla, in this instance, instantly has more symbolic importance. People who see a rejection or a perceived affront may think that there is a bigger rift between a primary group of working family members and someone who is closely related but is no longer an official representative of the crown. From the palace's point of view, tales that reveal problems amongst people are bad because they go against the picture of unity and professionalism that the King and the Prince of Wales are trying to create. Stories about public snubs, family fights, or women in the public eye competing with each other take attention away from the government's charities and ceremonies activities that the monarchy wants to highlight. In that sense, the Duchess's spokesperson's quick and thorough rejection might be seen as a way to protect the Duchess's reputation, a factual clarification meant to stop an unfavorable story from spreading, and to make it less likely that other news sources would pick it up. The reply protects the Duchess's business interests by making it clear that no effort was made to use a charity associated with the royal family. It also protects the Queen's charity from being seen as prejudiced in a certain way or personal. People are also interested in and sometimes guess about the past connection between Camilla and Sarah. When Sarah married Prince Andrew in the 1980s, Diana, Princess of Wales, and Camilla Parker Bowles were all part of the same social group. But as time went on, their paths changed. After her divorce, Sarah left the official inner circle of the monarchy and started a career in journalism and publishing where she was very independent and occasionally caused controversy that kept her in the news. Camilla chose a different path, a lengthy, patient commitment to humanitarian causes, the meticulous building of a public image, linked to advocacy and support work, and finally becoming Queen Consort. Because of the different paths they took, their public responsibilities and agendas are not the same. However, there have not been many public shows of outright hatred between the two. They have been seen together at family events, including weddings, official memorials, and most famously, Queen Elizabeth II's burial. These public events have usually been polite and traditional. When people say that intermittent coldness or remoteness means someone really hates you, they often turn complicated relationships into simple theatrical binaries. It's common for the media to characterize encounters between famous women as rivalries frequently to make the story more interesting. In this case, the snub tale follows that pattern. It is clear and easy to understand, but it may not be supported by the details of the facts. Queen Camilla has to be careful and fair when she gives out favors and supports people since she is Queen Consort. Her portfolio of causes, which includes work on osteoporosis literacy programs and raising awareness of domestic violence, shows that she has made long-term commitments that need her to pay attention to them all the time and have a reputation for honesty. The Queen Consort's actions and selections of patrons must be justifiable based on charity objectives and results rather than personal preferences or familial politics. From an institutional standpoint, transcending established norms, such as officially backing a relative's economic endeavor, may engender adverse opinions about the use of royal influence for commercial purposes. It can also make people wonder whether the organization is using its selection rules fairly. In the careful calculations of palace communications, it is typically better to avoid such ambiguities than to risk the scrutiny that a perceived violation of neutrality would bring. This cautious approach is based on examples and comparisons that have worked in the past. In the past, monarchs and other high-profile organizations have typically set up rules to avoid conflicts of interest and preserve the legitimacy of humanitarian work done by official offices. When people see favoritism in the selection of patrons, the distribution of awards, or the support of cultural enterprises, they sometimes become suspicious, and at times political turmoil arises. For contemporary constitutional monarchies that rely on the goodwill of the people rather than force being seen as fair is very important. So the conservatism that royal charities show in their dealings with the outside world may be seen as both a way to protect their institutional legitimacy and a way to avoid danger. Sarah Ferguson's work as a novelist is a tribute to her personal strength and ability to create a lasting professional identity outside of the royal family. Writing more than 70 novels and having several of them become bestsellers in the historical fiction genre shows that you are both productive and well-known in the market. Her job has given her a way to speak out about and support ideas she believes in, including compassion and moral lessons in children's books, while keeping the economic freedom that many former royals and public personalities want. That freedom implies that she makes money in the same ways as other authors by signing contracts with publishers, going on promotional tours, appearing on TV, and getting reviews. Her public persona certainly helps get people interested in her works, but it doesn't change the essential rules of the economy and culture that govern writing and publishing. If you look at it that way, the most probable reason why there hasn't been any official partnership with the Queen's Reading Room is because of bureaucracy and programs, not because of personal reasons. The charity has set the rules for what may be published. The Duchess is going for a business-focused approach that targets both kid readers and adults who like historical fiction. Professional routes that are similar but different may inevitably cross paths and lead to misunderstandings from time to time. The press turned a concern about programming fit and selection criteria into a story about people being rejected because they wanted a more interesting story. That change from institutional reality to human drama is a common way for modern reporting to work. The incident provides many educational insights on the interaction between media practices, institutional governance, and the societal perceptions of public people. First, it shows how quickly a speculative assertion may turn into a widely shared story when it fits with established tropes. In this example, the stereotype of a public snub between famous ladies and the royal bubble's general interest in interpersonal drama. Second, it shows how important it is for the people involved to respond clearly and quickly. An instant, unambiguous refutation that gives context is frequently the best way to stop the flow of a false tale. Third, it shows why institutions linked to the monarchy need to be strict about how they choose people and give them money. This is not only to protect the integrity of their charitable missions, but also to avoid the appearance of impropriety that can happen when official and private interests are not clearly defined. In addition to these obvious lessons, the story makes us think about how current media ecosystems, which include fast reporting, social media amplification, and economic incentives, affect how people see the monarchy. Headlines in tabloids and viral postings on social media reward stories that are simple, have conflict, and are based on people's personalities. These incentives make journalists and editors want to turn complicated institutional processes into tales about human drama that are easy to understand. The outcome is foreseeable. Institutional intricacy is often sacrificed for emotional impact. For the people in these tales, the answer is not simply quick factual correction, but also proactive contextualization that shows how choices are made and why certain results happen because of policy instead of bias. The event also serves as a reminder of the constant and intense attention that the royal family receives. Every public action or lack of action might have meaning and be open to interpretation. In a media world that values stories over details, facts may be shaped into more exciting shapes than they need to be. That dynamic makes it very important for the people and groups involved to provide context clearly and on time. It also makes it the responsibility of news consumers to understand that variations in remit, editorial emphasis, and policy are more likely to explain a certain result than strong personal dislike. Finally, the discussion, such as it was, shows how hard it is for King Charles and Prince William to run a monarchy that has to seem both modern and controlled. Their job is to maintain the crown's dignity while letting extended family members follow their own occupations and make a living. Finding that balance between inclusion and distance, between support and endorsement, between personal loyalty and institutional propriety will continue to be hard and lead to misunderstandings from time to time. When you hear tales like this one, the best thing to do is to be careful. Pay attention to the facts that have been proven. Grasp the institutional logics that shape those facts and fight the urge to fill in the blanks with dramatic guesses. When you look at it that way, the narrative of the so-called monumental snub loses a lot of its power and becomes a standard illustration of the numerous, often tense ways that private careers and public institutions may interact under the contemporary monarchy. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share it.